And you're welcome back to Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan on this extended show until 8 o'clock because we're bringing you live commentary of Leinster against La Rochelle, the Heineken Champions Cup final, live from Marseille. Right now, though, Football Saturday, remember football and off the ball, brought to you by Sky. Liverpool face Real Madrid in an unmissable Champions League final this evening, live on BT Sport. You can text us 53106, tweet us at Off the Ball. We're streaming the conversation, listen on News Talk around the country, but also watch us on the digital and social channels for Periscope and Twitter at Off the Ball, YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app for iOS and Android. Joined by the football correspondent of the Irish Independent, Dan McDonnell, the UEFA Pro Licence coach Shane Keegan, and our special guest live in studio here in Dublin, the ex-Liverpool and Republic of Ireland defender Mark Lawrenson. Lawro, you made it to Dublin on Champions League final day.
Can I just tell you that the flight took less time than the waiting for the cab outside the house? So nothing's changed over here, is it?
Yeah. You've had a good, like, you maybe haven't been here for a while, but you got right back into into the mentality of the angry person around Dublin going,
Suddenly remembered why I've not been coming over on a regular basis. But hey,
I'm just going through the stats here, Lawro. 39 caps for the Republic of Ireland under John Giles, Owen Hand and Jack Charlton. 5 league titles with Liverpool, an FA Cup, 3 League Cups, a European Cup in 1984. 25 years on the BBC, including match commentary duties at 3 World Cup finals. Lawro, well done. What a great run.
Yeah, it was. But you missed Alan Kelly. Alan Kelly was in charge for 2 games.
Yeah. Alan Kelly Senior, yeah.
Alan Kelly Senior, yeah.
Your Preston
who
buddy.
basically was one of the reasons why I played for Ireland.
Yeah.
Because he knew my granddad was Irish and said, if I get an Irish passport for you, will you play? I went, yeah. I mean, I was 17 playing in the old 3rd division. So it was quite, it was good. Great.
And was it Waterford? Was that the...
Yeah, Dungarvan.
Yeah,
Dungarvan. That's my mum used to come over every summer for holidays, and in those days I think they had like 1, 2, 3 class on the train, and I think my granddad put her on the third class in the carriage or whatever. That's all she ever used to tell me. We were always in the 3rd carriage, and I went, I've heard that before.
So you've been coming over here for like over 4 decades. Has it always been flying visits?
77.
Yeah, fleeting visits, or have you got to see the country?
No, I've got to see quite a bit of the country, but you know, the first time I came was when I made my debut. So I'd played for Preston on the Saturday afternoon, and there was a referee from Bolton called Bob Matthewson. He was refereeing the game against Poland for us on the Sunday. I sat next to him on the plane. I mean, that wouldn't happen nowadays, would it? And because I knew nothing, he was great. He was like, and he said, "I'll look after you tomorrow." I went, "Thanks very much."
It's probably a serious ethical breach now or something.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
Banned by your
after
wife,
all those years. And we played on the Sunday against Poland, who were a real top side as well. In those days, Giles didn't know anything about me. I mean, obviously, it was Gibber with Alan Kelly. He kind of said, "Let him play. He's doing all right." So. Played on the Saturday, came back on the Sunday to England and played on the Monday night. 3 games in 4 days. You'd retire now, wouldn't you?
And you were...
Allowed.
What?
Wouldn't be allowed now, would it?
I know.
Not a hope.
They treat horses better, don't they?
You were in the nearly team, like Liam Brady.
Nearly
yourself.
team, yeah.
82. You got injured for 88.
Yeah. And in fairness, I mean, Owen Hand actually did a really good job. We had some terrible decisions go against us. I know everybody moans, but we had some real shockers. Real shockers. So, and really, when you looked at the team that we had, we should have done better. And I think, and proven by Jack coming in, the team just needed organising. And that's nothing, against Owen. It just needed organising, and obviously got it, and then he kicked off, didn't he?
Was that the Belgium game that you had the particularly bad decision against you? I'm trying to think, was it Belgium?
Belgium, France, and there was Bulgaria away thrown in as well there, where we all jumped up off the bench. I think Giles scored a great goal, and Stevie Highway got given offside, which was, he wasn't, but hey. And as we jumped off the bench, all the soldiers were behind the bench, and that'd be guns, and it was like, I think you better sit down, chaps.
Sit down and not kick up a fuss.
And in the second... in the second leg of that competition, I'll never forget Giles' team talk, because there was a little number 7 played for Bulgaria, similar to John, right? And I think he tried to do John in the game. And we were in the little cottage at Lansdowne, and we used to get changed in there and come out and everything. But I remember he said it was like we all walked in and thought, right, okay, what? He said, so he named the team, and he just said, leave the number 7 to me, which would be Gilesy. And after about 20 minutes, this number 7 got the ball on the left-hand side, right on the apex of the halfway line, right in front of their dugout, Bulgarians' dugout, and Jalsi came from nowhere and absolutely took him out, flattened him. And their manager, honestly, he just reached, his bum never left the seat, he just reached down, got the number 7 by the shirt and just pulled him next to him, and he said, "Mr. Giles, now we play." And Johnny went, "Yeah."
There we go.
It. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, welcome to football, that was.
Was 88 difficult because, it was our first tournament and, you scored against Scotland and you're not there?
The only difficult thing was that in the first game, I went playing golf. I couldn't watch. But once I got over that, I was absolutely fine. I watched every single game after that. But I just couldn't watch because I suddenly realised I was captain of the team when I left. So I kind of thought that, could have been me and all that kind of stuff. So
you were captain over Frank?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what happened there, because Jack pulled the two of us and he said, "Which one of you's older?" So we're like, saying, when were you born, all that kind of stuff. And it was me. And he said, "Right, you're captain." And about half an hour later, after he finished, Jack sidled up. He said, "I knew you were older." It's a Jack thing, isn't it?
That's interesting.
Very
that's a little man management thing.
Yeah.
So you were out golfing. Did you go on your own? Did you get someone to go with you? Was it just a case of
No, I did regular football. I said I need to go and play. So, yeah. I might even have played well for a change.
Were you surprised we won?
Yeah.
No, not really. I didn't think we'd get beat. I mean, historically, all our teams from probably late 70s, 80s were always really difficult to play against. And always, obviously, therefore, really difficult to beat. So, no, we had some outstanding players, didn't we, when you really look at the players that we had then. And arguably, maybe even the best team that era.
Were you surprised with the way it took off the way it did? Because Italia 90 just stopped this whole country.
Yeah.
And then 94 and everything.
I was working for the Irish Times.
We spent the whole week, Dan, like talking about Saipan this week.
Yeah,
that's how
right,
we're so captured by this.
Yeah, no, I went over working for the Irish Times and stuff, so I was kind of all part of it. No, it's brilliant, wasn't it? It was, as you say, it just took the whole country by storm, and we were good, weren't we?
See,
only we could get to see the Pope, couldn't we?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It's that whole Jack thing is just. I don't think he ever really realised how big he was. Well, apart from when he went into the pubs to cash a cheque, which wasn't cashed, as we all. And everyone went, "Oh yeah, sure." But that happened on many times.
Well,
or cadged a fag off somebody.
I don't think he liked that, did he?
What?
That story.
Well, I know, but it was true. But he never.
I think it was true, John, to be fair. I'm not sure if he paid for a pint in his time in Ireland, to be fair.
Or a fag.
Yeah.
Or a fag. It would see somebody smoking and go over and just said, "Could you?" And yeah, Jack, have a yeah.
Yeah. Well, people I think were happy to do it, weren't they?
Yeah, of course you were.
But I'm actually curious about that, because it was so hard to qualify for tournaments, and even those teams that had the near misses in the early 80s, in particular the ones you referenced, like.
Well, we were unseeded, weren't we?
Yeah. How do you think they would have done though if they'd? I'm thinking, like, what was the difference between that team and the team of the sort of the late 80s that made it? Was there actually much difference in terms of ability?
No, I think they just got a little bit of luck as well.
Yeah.
No, there wasn't. And I mean, that the Scotland night when we won 1-0, and I scored the goal, left foot, most unusual. Very, very late on in the game, with about 5 minutes to go, somebody played a ball in the channel. I was playing in midfield, and as I got onto it, Hansen came out to mark me, and I actually dinked it past him. And I think I said something to him, and I tried to score. And if you remember, at the end of the game, Jack came over to me straight away, and everybody thought he's going to go, "Oh, great goal, yada yada that." Oh, he gave me the biggest bollocking ever. He said, "Why were you trying to score?" And I went, "Well, because that's sort of what we do." He went, "You should never even have been in that position." I said, "You picked me to play in that position." And anyway, he was fine, giving me a cuddle and everything like that. But he mullered me, absolutely mullered me.
That was the psychology, wasn't it? You never knew.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was, you'll know the story about when he named the team. And Ronnie Whelan was named at left back. Paul was named at right back. And we just thought that he'd got it wrong. But he got the 11 right, but not in the right order, a bit like Eric Morecambe. It's like, with the piano and stuff. And Ronnie said to me, because we were sat in the dressing room, Ronnie said to me, he said, "Am I playing left back?" And I said, "Well, it sounds like you are." and he went, "What the F?" And I went, He said, why aren't you playing left back? I said, don't look at me, it's nothing to do with me. And I said, I was picked to play in midfield because obviously Souness was going to play for Scotland and he got injured, thank God. And basically 3 of their 4 midfield players were midgets, which obviously helped us as well, didn't it? So, but yeah, he gave me the biggest bollocking ever. Lawro, ever of any manager.
His obviously there's been a lot of talk over his playing style and all that kind of stuff. What did you make of the playing style? What did you ask of what you were being asked to do as individuals at the time?
I was all right because he'd said I didn't play in his very first game. I think it was against Wales, wasn't it? I think me, Jim Beglin and Ronnie Whelan didn't play. I think we must have had a European Cup game or something. And when we heard afterwards, he said to all the back 4 players, he said, you do not play in your own half. You do not play, and if you do, I'll take you off. So when I saw him then the first time, he said to me, you're playing in midfield. So that was kind of all right. But, I mean, O'Leary wasn't happy because obviously he could play, David, couldn't he? But he wasn't happy. But then, so without wishing to go on for too long, after the first game, he then said, right, we need to get together because the Liverpool lads weren't there. So we went to Lillishall. And the idea was to do a bit of training, stay over, have a few beers, and then go back to our clubs because it was a free week. And when we got there, it was like hosing it down and everything. And Jack said, do you all want to stay? And we just went, no, not really. No, we're happy to train and have a few beers, but we want to go home because we didn't have any free weeks, generally. He said, right, he said, I'll tell you what, we'll just do an hour. So he took us all out onto this training pitch. And he said to me, Ronnie and Jim, he said, right, just watch this. So he went through the free kicks and corners, for and against. But I think Frank Stapleton generally was like organising it all and everything. And Frank was doing it and we were watching. And then we suddenly realised Jack was behind the goal with big golf umbrella, practising his golf swing with his back to us. Right, and then he just shouted and he went, you 3 Herberts, did you get that? And we just went, yeah, Jack. He said, all right, fine, let's go.
And that was it?
That was it. Yeah.
Some prep.
Yeah, I know, it was unbelievable, isn't it? And I think who's a lad he still works for at Newcastle United, Irish boy, John
Anderson?
John Anderson, Ando. And he gave Ando a lift down from Newcastle because Jack lived in Newcastle, down to Lillishall. And we said to Ando when he got out, he was effing and jeffing Ando, and he went, and I said, longest car journey ever. I said, what would you mean? He said, well, he said, hello, Ando, how you doing? And then he put this tape on, how to fish for fish. Apparently, and Ando said, all the way down. And he said, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Yeah, that was Jack, wasn't it? I played for his brother, for Bobby. I'm the only person alive to actually play for Bobby and Jack.
Right.
Oh, wow.
But yeah.
Where was that now? That was Preston.
And my stepfather was a director at the club. He helped get Bobby in.
Yeah.
So, so completely different, obviously. And Bobby he didn't like it. He just didn't like it. I remember being in charge of the dressing room because she had like a young apprentice in charge of the dressing room home games. And if, they need some studs putting in and all those kind of things and everything. I remember him coming in with the team sheet, the yellow bit. You used to have a white bit and a yellow bit. And the yellow bit was the other team and everything. And he came in and he was shaking. He was literally, one of the best players in the world was shaking with this like away, the away team and everything like that. And it was like, I thought, wow. Yeah. But the only, not saying the only good thing, when you played with him, we got every single decision ever. And referees used to call him Mr. Charlton.
He's that respected.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, he's a fabulous bloke, but just so completely different from Jack.
And the players all pick up on that with him. You said like you saw him shaking coming in.
Yeah.
The dressing room sort of copped that as well, I assume. They sort of realise,
yeah,
God, he doesn't... but he's
hated it.
But he's a as you said, he's a national hero at the time, so it's a really uncomfortable one almost in some ways.
He used to love training with the kids, which was us, the youth team. He loved it, absolutely loved it. And we drew Man United youth team in the, I think it was a Lancashire FA Youth Cup or something like that. And of course they had like loads of good kids. And we drew 0-0 at home, which was a major result for us. So we had to go to Old Trafford for the replay, like one man and his dog in there. But Bobby went because Nobby was in charge of us. I mean, what's mad, isn't it? Nobby and Bobby, like amazing. And we got centre back got sent off. I was playing right back. Centre back got sent off for us after about 10 minutes. So they said to me, "Go and play at centre back," and we got another draw. And the Man United punters booed Bobby and Nobby.
Wow!
On the way out, the big long walk to the dressing room, and it's like, why? It wasn't their fault, was it? I mean, for us, it was a massive result. A massive result. They booed him.
But John, what happened there with Bobby? That can happen. Like, obviously, Carlo Ancelotti will be over in Madrid tonight. We spoke about Ancelotti's book there a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. Ancelotti says in his first gig as a manager, he was in the dressing room, team talk ready to go, opened his mouth, 3 attempts, no words came out on any of the 3 attempts. No. Assistant manager had to jump in and save him and start the team talk and come out with the first few lines, and then just turned around to Carlo and went, "Isn't that right, Carlo?" And Carlo just stood there nodding. Yeah. It can happen no matter how big a player you've been. It's a different environment when you step forward into that role.
Yeah, and Bobby, I think, just a shy person generally, and I remember my stepfather coming back, and he woke me late at night, and he said, "Oh, we've got Bobby Charlton, the new manager." And I think, wow. Yeah, we're all early, and the next day, weren't we? We weren't going to be late.
It's amazing, Mark, that at the time in the 80s, you're playing for the biggest club probably in the world, 5 league titles you won in Rome, the European Cup, and now we're talking about a Champions League final tonight. And what I felt, when I was growing up, Liverpool were just such a dominant team, and there was that connection between Liverpool, which was treated badly by the UK government and its people, and I get that sense that connection remains with Klopp, probably the most charismatic figure in world sport at the moment, and they're all in Paris tonight, 60,000 of them. They won't be at the game, all of them, but they've gone.
Oh, well, I've come through the airport this morning I still call it Speak. It's John Lennon International. It was black. It was black with punters. Me and Steve McMahon was going to Belfast, I think, and we were hiding in one of the rooms because it was just completely nuts. And the stupid things were, I said to Macca, we're walking across the road to go in, and the lads have just got shorts and T-shirts on. And he's showing me age now, aren't he? I'm thinking, what if it's cold tonight and all those kind of things? Do you need a jacket or something like that? It was bonkers.
You're running out of things to lose, you see. The less you bring, the less...
Is that how it works?
I assume that's the logic that's been applied, yeah.
And they were all on it straight away. Once it came through check-in, they were all straight on it. But great atmosphere, fab atmosphere.
You've been to these games as a player and as a pundit, and it's kind of strange, Lawro, in that you might have become better known for many years as for sitting on the couch on a Saturday night in front of millions of people than winning European Cups.
Yeah. Well, that was by chance as much as anything.
Did you fall into punditry? Or?
Yeah. First game I ever did was Peterborough 1, Liverpool 0 in the old, I think it probably was a League Cup in those days, in the early 90s. And I did that for what is now Radio 5, and I think it was Radio 2 in those days. So I did that, and they said, "Oh, why don't you do some more?" And I went, "Yeah, okay." But I worked for Sky. The very first programme that Sky ever did that sort of been replicated by Soccer Saturday, it was Paul Dempsey, right? Obviously from up the road. So it was me, Dempo, and the lady was on it who's now got her own programme on Sky. She's from Wigan. And
Kay Burley.
Kay Burley was on it. She'd gone to Vic Wakeman.
Really?
She'd gone to Vic Wakeman, who was the boss, and said, "Vic, I can do that." Fair enough. So she did it one week, and then she realised, no, she couldn't. And there was me and Dempo. And then, I don't know what happened. I think Dempo must have gone to work, because he worked all over the place, didn't he? And Jeff Stelling turned up. So the very first one was me and Jeff Stelling. We had no football. Or we had like non-league football and all that kind of. We were road testing games at Christmas and everything. It was bonkers, right? And Vic said, "No, stay with it. And then we started to get the football. And then the very first week, with football, there was me, Jeff, Rodney Marsh, and Bestie.
Yeah.
And I came off, and Vic's gone obviously because Bestie's there, and they wanted to, put their arm around him. And that was fab, and I went, "That'll never catch on."
So we're trying our own version of it here now on a Saturday afternoon on News Talk and Off the Ball.
That's incredible, yeah. Good, because it was.
Bestie was a problem.
I was just going to say, Best was sort of a big part of that show, but
what a lovely man! What an absolute fab man! But he lived 3 doors away from the pub's called the Feeney, and you'd quite often hear the driver who'd report back to Sky and say, "He's not in his apartment." And so they're going, try the Feeney. And like going the Feeney, and obviously he'd be on it.
Yeah, sad.
And he would just go, I don't think he's with us today. So, but it was such a nice bloke. He told me a story, because at Sky at the time, you couldn't have a drink in the building. You weren't allowed. So it was a Murdoch thing. You just weren't allowed. So you go to the rugby club at the back. I think they still do it now. And we're in there one day, and we were talking about all kinds of different things. And I said, when did you realise you had a problem? Because he told everyone he had a problem all the time. He went, I was in America playing for whoever he was playing for in America, and they'd won a game on the road, so it could have been 3,000 miles away. And he said, I was on it for 3 days, and he said, I went to try and cross the highway, like 5-lane highway, and he said, I suddenly realised I am in trouble.
Yeah.
Which is sad, isn't it?
Oh, it's incredibly sad.
I remember watching Blackpool Man United, because we lived in Blackpool at the time, and my sister was a massive George Best fan, and she said, come on, let's run on at the end of the game and like pat his back. So we did, as you do.
He was exposed to, he was almost like this sort of you got the first taste of football stardom at a different level, because there's this book, I think we spoke about it during the lockdown, JD, like this guy called Arthur Hopcraft wrote this book, Football Man. And it was essays that were written in the 60s, so it was like a live essay written, like a George Best interview at the time. I think he got to spend time with George Best in his house, and the letters people were sending him, girls were sending him stuff, and it was just... And it was actually painted a real picture of Best. Like, a lot of us would have grown up, in some respects, with Best knowing the sad story first, and then knowing the stuff afterwards. Yeah. And this live portrait of him, it was powerful to read it, actually. And yet, that Sky sort of incarnation of Best, it would have been quite... it was quite sad sometimes.
Well, he had this house built, and it was a bit like a public toilet, and there was like glass all over and everything, and people would just... You could drive up to it, and people on a Sunday, they would drive there and just sit outside, hoping that they might see him. I mean, what a life that is.
He was able to take punishment as well in games. That was the thing. Best was kicked all over the place in football, and was able to withstand. He was very strong.
Nobby Stiles said to me, he said he was the best tackler in the team. He said, unbelievable. He's like in slide tackle and just nicked the ball back. And he said he was tough as old boots. But then he had Paddy Crowne, didn't he? Paddy Crowne was his minder. And if anybody touched George, Paddy would whack him, basically. Sort them out.
So you moved to the Beeb then. When did that happen?
96, 97. Yeah. So first World Cup was France.
France 98.
That wasn't bad.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Just 5 weeks in Paris. But apart from that, we survived.
I actually read something about that. You would have worked with Jimmy Hill then.
Yeah.
Which I'd say was an experience.
Jimmy.
To so many people, again, here in Ireland or whatever, Jimmy Hill was the old voice. And then you hear his backstory, and he was this incredible figure in English football, abolishing the maximum wage. And
3 points for a win.
3 points for a win.
Yeah.
And yet he was possibly this old, sometimes cantankerous on the panel or whatever he wanted to be. But I think you said you loved his company. He was...
That was good company, Jimmy. Full of energy and like great stories, as you can imagine. And he just used to do things just to get people riled. That's what Jimmy would do. And, his big mate was Des Lynham. And I remember we were at Sheffield United and we'd done an FA Cup game. And young Alan Kelly was in goal, I think, for Sheffield United. And we were walking round afterwards. We'd done the studio bit and walk around. And loads of punters were still in the stadium. And as we walked around, they're all saying, Jimmy is a W. You can imagine, can't you? And he turned to Des, went, told you, Des? He said, they love me, really? But what a good guy he was, Jimmy. Brilliant. And you forget, he presented Match of the Day. He was one of the very first.
Before Des Lynham,
Yeah. So the stuff he did in football was amazing. It really was.
We got Lawro on the radio today on News Talking Off the Ball. You want to text a question to Lawro 53106 with Dan McDonnell and Shane Keegan here on Champions League final day. Liverpool against Real Madrid, 8 o'clock this evening. Delighted to have you here in studio in Dublin, Lawro. So 5 World Cups, was it 3 finals you commentated on? That's not bad.
I don't know, John. I never sort of counted. I really
don't count
wouldn't know.
Your punditry medals,
No. But
what stands out though from those experiences?
I think just the trips themselves. I mean, Brazil, South Africa, all those kind of things. But I did this long 8-minute piece in South Africa, and it was about the English army.
Right.
And most of the soldiers were fighting in this particular battle were from Preston and Liverpool and those kind of things. And and I tell you who was at the battle, Winston Churchill and Gandhi. And Gandhi was like a stretcher bearer. So it was obviously full of history and all those kind of things. And basically the Afrikaans, this hill was obviously very, very strategic, and the Afrikaans got to the top, and like the Boers and everything, and they were unbelievable shots because they were all farmers and everything. So it was one of the things where the British troops came up to get so far and that like sort of camp for the night. What they didn't realise was that the Boers started to actually go and leave, and then in the morning when they woke up, like the Brits didn't know, and then the Boers just got up and walked back to the top of the hill and started massacring them and everything. So that was the best thing I ever did, because the history was just amazing. And it was like the size of a football pitch. More people had been killed on this football pitch size than anywhere ever in their lives, and it was fascinating. And that was the Spion Kop.
Right.
That was the origin of the Spion Kop, and and they spelt it Speon. So that's where it started, because it was a hill, and that's how. And I think Liverpool weren't the first, were they? I think wasn't it something like Dulwich Hamlet. I think they had the original Kop. So and then it went on to Liverpool, who'd built a new stand, and like all the stuff that comes out of it, they suddenly thought, well, what shall we do? And that's how that they built the Kop, because they didn't know what else to do, and they built the Kop with it all, and that's the whole history of it. So that was the best thing I did, because it was just great. It was fab. And actually, we were in the middle of nowhere where this place is. And I remember the guy who owned it, and he cooked for us and everything. There's a few of us, obviously, a cameraman and producer and all those kind of stuff. And he said to me, I was going to bed, and he said, I'll give you a knock at 6 a.m. And I went, what for? He said, I want to show you something. And I said, okay, really, he's a really nice guy, this. And at 6 a.m, I'm up and everything. He said, come on. We jumped in a golf buggy, and he drove me. And it wasn't jungle, but it was similar, right? And he went, shh, stop. So he stopped the golf buggy and went, look. And there was baby cheetah and its mother. And he said, that's the first one we've ever had on the land and everything. It was like, wow. The whole thing was just, forget the football. That was just brilliant. Yeah. I mean, what chance would you ever have?
Oh no, like that's the. I think that we were talking with was it David Motter last week? We were actually talking to him about footballers travel. You would have played all over the world, but you would have probably just been in a hotel a lot of the time and as a player.
Yeah.
But then actually, when you go back in a different context, you actually see some of these places.
Yeah,
it's a very different existence.
Oh well, I mean, Brazil with the slave trade and everything. Up I think it was the East Coast maybe. It was that was the origin of the slave trade. And then we went to Manaus.
Yeah, which was up in the Amazon.
Have you ever been?
I was there for that World Cup as well, yeah.
So you went to Manaus?
Yeah.
Where the two rivers were side by side, but they didn't run into each other.
Yeah,
amazing.
Manaus is an extraordinary place. Really. I mean, the fact that World Cup games were played there was sort of,
a bit political.
It was, yeah.
But they had these two rivers, literally, and they ran side by side, but they never ever ran into each other. One was slightly higher than the other one. It was mad, wasn't it? Yeah, it was just a mad place.
Quirky place, yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have gone there, would you? Hold on, Marbella or Manaus? What we think?
Well, I don't know if there's any direct flights next week.
Wouldn't have been the footballers' end of season holiday to Manaus for like 10 days.
There's places I've been to, like Tirana, Tbilisi, Tel Aviv, Tallinn. Never would have go, and that was the report.
No,
but that's the experience. But so many of the players would go there and would never see them. They just see a hotel.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
Yeah. They don't want to either. They're happy enough in the hotel.
You don't even know where you are.
No. You try and organise an excursion for them, and you just leave us alone.
Well, it's also
just want to play the PlayStation.
Yeah, because our team loved a beer, obviously, and so even when we played away in Europe, wherever we played, we always got back to the airport at 1:55. It didn't really matter, even if it was only played in Holland and we should have been home at 12:30. They made sure we didn't get back to 1:55, because then you couldn't go anywhere for a beer after the travel.
In Liverpool.
And Ronnie Moran would come off the plane, and Ronnie Moran would wait, passport control, and as you walk past, you had to give him your passport. And they used to say, the boot room went, you know what you like, you'll lose them. Nothing to do with that. So you couldn't bugger off, the next day and clear off to Paris for the day. No chance.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Kidology.
Got to take a break here. 53106. Any questions for Lawro? We're building up to the Champions League final. Liverpool and Real Madrid. It kicks off in Paris at 8 o'clock tonight. Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk is back after this. I'm back to Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 8 on this extended show this evening, because we're bringing you live commentary of the Heineken Champions Cup final between Leinster and La Rochelle, live from Marseille, 4:45 the start time. Right now, though, Football Saturday on Champions League final day until 4, in the company in studio of Mark Lawrenson, the former Liverpool and Republic of Ireland defender, joined by Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent and the UEFA Pro Licensed coach Shane Keegan. Remember, football and off the ball brought to you by Sky. Liverpool facing Real Madrid in an unmissable Champions League final this evening, live on BT Sport. You can text us questions for Lawro 53106. You can tweet us at Off the Ball. You can listen on News Talk around the country. Also watch us on the digital and social channels for YouTube, for Facebook, and on the OTB Sports app. Text in here on 53106. Please ask Mark, what chances do young Irish players have making the grade in the Premier League now, when there's so many other lads from around the world competing for contracts? Should the Irish lads join European clubs if offered the opportunity, says Ken?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to better yourself? Absolutely. Just go wherever. It's a bit like lads, already in England. Send them out on loan. If they're not going to play in the first team, send them out on loan. I think what happens then is, obviously you improve, hopefully, but also you then realise what you've got at your parent club, and it kicks quite a few lads on that.
What do you think about Callagher at the moment? Because he's got decisions to make.
Yeah, if I were him, I'd stay. And the reason I would stay is because in training every day, he's playing against world-class strikers, and you can get your physicality anyway as well. But I would rather do that with him and keep him, and he might play a few more games this coming season maybe, because every time he's come in, he's done really, really well.
Real Madrid are masters over 2 legs. If the Champions League was over 2 legs, Real Madrid would have the arts to win the title, as they've done in the last 3 rounds against PSG, Chelsea and Man City. As a one-off based on overall quality, Liverpool should win it in the 90 minutes. If it goes to extra time, Liverpool will be on the ropes and in trouble. Verdict to Liverpool to win it in normal time, says Jack in Santry. Is there a bit of a danger that Liverpool have gone to the well quite a lot? Is there any kind of freshness issues, or will they be just up for this?
No, I think generally they'll be okay. I wouldn't want to go into extra time. But I mean, when was the last time they played? They played on the Sunday, didn't they, against Wolves?
Yeah.
So what's that, 6 days? Plenty. He might have given them a day off, or even 2 days off, Jurgen Klopp, I would have thought. But I think it's such a big game that your adrenaline, probably sleeping this afternoon, but their adrenaline will be pumping. And you won't feel tired going into this. It's the biggest club game in the world. Forget that world whatever thing, because there's some really poor teams in it. But this is the biggest club game in the world.
Was it the biggest moment of your career, Roma?
Yeah, because for the same reason, you suddenly realise that you've won the big one, and that particular season we won the European Cup away from home. Generally, all our games, we had some really, really tough ones. So yeah, we did, and we had. When we played, have you heard this story about Dinamo Bucharest at home? Dinamo Bucharest came in the semi-final. Have you got enough time for me to tell you?
I'll go for it, yeah.
Right, so, and they man-marked Rushy, Kenny and Graham Souness. Little Sammy Lee scored for us 1-0. So that's all, we kept it tight and everything. But the lad who was marking Graham was spitting at him and doing all sorts of things. With about, 10 minutes left, we get a corner at the Kop end. And, of course, only probably 4 or 5 cameras in those days, so everybody's watching this corner come in. All of a sudden you just heard this crack, you could hear it, and Graham punched a fella and broke his jaw straight off. So their manager did the press conference afterwards, obviously completely different than it is now, with just a handful of people around him, and all he would say was he went, next week, because he played a week later, next week, he called him Soonsy. He said, next week, Soonsy, see if you're good enough in Bucharest. And he loved all that. So we go to Bucharest, and it's Tuesday before the Wednesday. You couldn't train on the pitch, you weren't allowed to and everything. But Joe Fagan, in his infinite wisdom, said, tell you what, boys, on the Tuesday morning, before we actually go to the training ground, let's go and see, he used to say, let's go and look at the wicket. He's a big cricket fan and everything, so just go and look at the pitch. We turn up and it's lashing down. It's been lashing down for 2 or 3 days, which I think was really why he wanted us to see it, just to get it in your head that it's going to be a bit of a mess and everything. We turn up at the ground, and of course, Dinamo Bucharest basically were the army team. So, they were the national team, so whatever. And we all turned up, and there was probably 4 or 5 of us, long hair, tashes, right? And I'm just sat at the side of the bus, I'm minding my own business as you do, thinking, are we going to go and look at the wicket or not? And nothing really happened for a minute or two. And then this knock on the door right next to me. So I turned and looked at this soldier, and he looked at me and he went, that crossed my throat.
You were Souness.
Yeah. And I went, no, it's him. He's there. They tried to break his leg. They absolutely tried to break his leg. And he stood up in the game and he just went, like, is that it? I mean, he was amazing. If Kenny hadn't been in that team, Graham Souness was the best player I'd ever played with.
And he left then? He left after the final?
Yeah, they'd done a deal, hadn't they, after the final? He'd done a deal to go to Sampdoria. Why wouldn't you want to go to Sampdoria, by the way? But wow, what a player. Unbelievable. But he had a whole string of guys that he did on a regular basis. And his thing was, they were going to do me.
Different age.
Different era. I read something this week, and he gave me a bit of stick for like slowing down and clattering into people, because and he gave Ronnie some stick. Then Ronnie Whelan could look after himself, by the way, and Ronnie would leave his foot in a little bit late, but I never did. And ever, but he had this thing, because I played in midfield when he didn't play, and obviously I love tackling and stuff like that. So, and he used to say, I used to watch you, he said, and you could have got there before the other bloke, but you waited. I said, well, what's wrong with that? I waited just to tackle him, not to murder him like you would have done. But yeah, he was brilliant.
5-3-1-6. Lawro, I fancy Liverpool 3-1 in normal time. Can you see Klopp springing any surprises with his team selection?
No.
Says Michael in Rathcormac and Waterford. So it's Kanate, Matip, is that a decision to make?
Yeah, that's a decision to make, because Kanate's played in most of the cup games, hasn't he? Although he's wobbled in the last couple, and I just think your man's movement at Madrid is brilliant.
Benzema.
Yeah, Benzema is brilliant, and I'm just a little bit. I'd rather have Matip with Van Dijk. I think it's just because he's got a bit more experience, but it's a tester, isn't it? Because do you play Thiago? Do you play Fabinho? What do you do?
With the fitness, maybe little queries about their fitness.
Yeah, little queries. But I suppose the way they are now with the doctors and the physios would be saying he's absolutely fine.
Yeah, they'll be saying it as well, won't they? They'll be saying they're fine.
Oh, my goodness, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Thiago's one of the best players I've ever seen. He's just unbelievable. He just sees things on a football pitch which nobody else sees. Do you see a goal he made for Mane against Wolves?
Yeah.
With,
flick.
The whole crowd went silent. I was at the game. The crowd went silent and went, has he really just done that? I mean, he's amazing. And Fabinho is just so good, because he sits in front of the 2 centre-backs and he spots danger and he sniffs it out. So
I'm wondering, Shane, is that where maybe the game would be won and lost? They're all talking about Vinicius and Alexander-Arnold and Carvajal and Diaz, but maybe it'd be the middle.
You're 100% right, John, because of the way the two teams want to play. For me, the midfield battle is going to be absolutely key. And look, we probably will, towards the end of the show, we probably will try and make predictions, but for me, we're shooting in the dark until we see that team sheet, because quite simply, I would put it, if Liverpool's first choice midfield 3, so let's say Fabinho and Thiago are fit, if they're both cleared to start, for me, I can't see beyond the Liverpool win. If they lose Thiago, I think that levels it up and it's a 50-50 game. If they lose Thiago and Fabinho, I think it's Madrid.
Yeah.
And because I'd be putting that much emphasis on who wins the centre midfield partnership, because when you look at how high Liverpool defend and the way they will defend, obviously with that line they've had all year, Lawro, and then you look at Vinicius' speed in behind. Like, if you're not in control of the game and control the tempo of the game and control of the ball, that's a massive problem. If you're in control of the game, that's not really that much of an issue, really, because you're going to dominate the ball and he might have little to no chances to spring that counter. But I think they have to have those 3 bodies in the middle of the field, or at least 2 of those 3 bodies in the middle of the field.
Well, they'll have Henderson as well, won't he?
Well, Henderson will definitely be there. Yeah, Henderson. But obviously, if Fabinho's out, Henderson has to go and play the deepest role.
Or he quite likes playing Milner in there.
Do you think?
Because he trusts him, I think he really, really does trust him. But mind you, trust Keita a little bit, which most of us don't really get.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. If he has two of the three, so let's say either Fabinho or Thiago is fit alongside Henderson, does he go Keita or Milner?
I would hope not, to be honest with you, because I watch him and I think at the end of the game I'm thinking, what did he actually do? The game seems to pass him by a little bit, but he's a big Milner fan.
Yeah,
because he just knows you'll get 7 out of 10 and he won't do anything stupid. He'll always be in position and stuff. So it is an interesting one. I mean, I'd rather have Thiago than Fabinho.
Yeah. Would you? Yeah.
For a night like this, because he can just do something like we said about the goal he made for Mane against Wolves. He just does something in the game. You think, wow, that's not how it's meant to be.
The Madrid midfield is incredible, isn't it? It seems to be the centre midfield for Madrid for about 10 years now.
The only thing
those three seem to be there forever.
Yeah, although Casemiro got away with a murder against City, didn't he? Could have been sent off twice.
Definitely.
So if they got a decent referee, but they're clever, aren't they?
Yeah. And then the young fella they're bringing in.
Well, Camavinga, but we'll probably talk about it more like after 3 maybe. But listening to some of the Madrid commentary, they're wondering, will they spring something in there? Because the pace and intensity Liverpool can play at, they are older, that Madrid 3,
Did they start Rodrigo?
Well, that's what they seem to be debating about, what they might do. Will they actually, you might look at the team sheet and you might have a little bit of a surprise from a Madrid perspective that you're not expecting because of that.
Yeah, I would think you'd probably just go for experience to start with.
Yeah.
And you can always change it then, can't you?
Escape from Everton, the movie. It'll be out now.
Really?
Ancelotti,
yeah. Well, yeah, hey, how good a move was that for him? I'm delighted Everton stayed up because Merseyside needs derbies.
Yeah.
And it's 6 points for Liverpool, I know, in it, 2 games, so that's always good. But no, I am delighted they stay up. But I tell you what, they've got a lot of work to do there.
Yeah.
Everton.
Yeah.
Who's going to take the players? Because they're on massive money. It's bonkers.
Okay, Lawro, Dan and Shane, thanks so much for the moment. 53106, getting plenty of texts in here for Lawro on Football Saturday. Previewing the Champions League final, talking about Lawro's career, both as a pundit and a great player as well. Let's check in now, though, with our analyst, Sean O'Sullivan is down in Killarney. He is looking ahead to the Munster Senior Football final between Kerry and Limerick with our reporter, Oisín Langan.
Welcome to a sunny and warm Killarney. Perfect conditions for Munster final day. I'm joined by 4-time All-Ireland winner with Kerry, Sean O'Sullivan. Sean, how are you?
Good, Oisín. Great. Sure, how would you be? A beautiful day in Killarney, as you said, for a Munster final. And looking forward to it'll be interesting to see what kind of game it will be. Obviously, look, Kerry are red hot favourites to win. But let's see how things transpire over the next hour or so.
You walked up the town, which is always a special place to be on Munster final day. How does it compare atmosphere-wise and crowd-wise to what I will call, and I really don't want to disrespect Limerick by saying this, but what I would call big Munster finals, Cork-Kerry Munster finals? Yeah,
I came in with 2 friends earlier. We just went for a bite to eat and I just walked up the town, Oisín, and yeah, look, absolutely 100% not being disrespectful to Limerick whatsoever, but the numbers aren't what they would be for a typical Kerry-Cork match. It just, I suppose it just doesn't bring that support really that the Cork crowd would bring. But look, that's not for the players to worry about. Their job is to go out in the field and play the game. What's going on around them won't matter. But certainly, you're dead right. It doesn't really have that little bit of buzz that a Kerry-Cork Munster final would have. But look, that's for us to worry about, not the players.
I often wonder how much stock Kerry players put in a Munster title. You corrected me once when I said you had 3 All-Irelands and you said no, I have 4 All-Irelands. I wonder, do you know offhand how many Munsters you have?
I don't actually, no, I don't. But that's not to say, and that's not being disingenuous or being cocky or anything. It's just, I suppose, look, All Irelands are the currency down here, but a Munster title is still a very, very important medal in your collection if you can get it. Now, look, I couldn't even tell you if I looked at that Kerry 15 today how many how many Munster medals are scattered amongst that squad and team. It's a lot. And look, we picked up a good few in our time as well. But at the end of the day, Oisín, whatever day you go out when there's a medal available to be won, you want to win it. And this group of players today will be no different.
Sean O'Sullivan, 4-time All-Ireland winner with Kerry, thanks for joining us for now here in Killarney, where the sun is shining. It's incredibly warm, perfect conditions for a match. Kerry taking on Limerick in the Munster football final. Remember, Kerry are the defending champions. They haven't lost a championship game here since 1995. Limerick haven't won this provincial crown since 1896. That kind of tells its own story, doesn't it? Back to you.
Thanks, Oisin. For now, ahead of Kerry and Limerick. In the Talton Cup, Cavan 13 points down, 1-3 is the latest score, and it is Leitrim 1-9, Antrim 4 points. So Leitrim with an 8-point lead there. Dublin 3 points, Meath no score in the Leinster Ladies Football Final. Dublin and Kildare throw in at Croke Park in the men's Leinster final at 5 o'clock. Our GA coverage and Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GA Senior Football Championship. Check out hashtag the toughest for more, getting regular updates from Sean O'Sullivan throughout that Munster game between Kerry and Limerick. This is Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 8 this evening on this extended show, bringing you live commentary later of the Heineken Champions Cup final between Leinster and La Rochelle, live from Marseille. But 53106, the text number now for Football Saturday. Any opinion, any question with Lawro live in studio, Mark Lawrenson, Shane Keegan and Dan McDonnell on Champions League final day, the day of finals. We're building up to that full coverage of Liverpool against Real Madrid after the news. Don't go away. And you're welcome back to this extended Off the Ball Saturday on News Talk. John Duggan with you through until 8, because we have commentary of the Heineken Champions Cup final, Leinster against La Rochelle, 4:45 live from Marseille. Right now though, Football Saturday on Champions League final day until 4, in the company of Mark Lawrenson, live in studio with us, the former Liverpool and Republic of Ireland defender, joined by Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent and the UEFA Pro Licence coach Shane Keegan. Remember, football on Off the Ball brought to you by Skywatch. Huddersfield Town versus Nottingham Forest in the Championship playoff final this Sunday, live only on Sky Sports. You can text us 53106. Listen on News Talk around the country. Also watch us on the digital and social channels for YouTube, Facebook and on the OTB Sports app, and on Twitter for Off the Ball. 53106. Always a pleasure to hear from Lawro. As says Ian in Dublin, could you ask him which of Salah or Mane would he sign up, assuming they both want blockbuster deals and the club will only probably stump for one?
I would take Mane.
I'd have Salah.
Yeah.
Why?
I just think Mane gives you a little bit more, and I'm not sure. Well, we're hearing, aren't we, that Bayern Munich are going to take Mane, but I don't know. I feel like Salah's, I wouldn't say he's on the wane, but I just think you might get longer with Mane. That's the only reason.
Not too dissimilar in age now.
Are they not? All right. Oh, well, you know more than me.
It just feels like, well, I think the sense is that Salah has been to the well a lot with some of his sort of draining international. Although I think, to be fair, he didn't start this season, like he actually got a bit of a break last summer, didn't he? And the point has been made that Egypt aren't in the World Cup, so whereas Senegal are. So like next season coming, you know,
and he
Salah
said that
could play 3 months and then rest. But I mean, Salah's staying anyway.
It's very hard to say. Well, you can't do anything because he's staying anyway.
But he's going to stay and probably run his contract down the way things are going. So there's not really a decision to be made there with him.
Also, Mane's got another year, isn't he?
Yeah, it just
so the
seems
football club could keep him if they wanted to.
They could play that game.
Go.
This is always obviously with wage ceilings is always.
Well, I said before. I mean, you know, whatever they get, then you've got Van Dijk and Alisson and everybody else knocking on the door, and it's a spiral, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's and we were speaking a small bit off air about that. Like that is the game that you have to play. That well, there's an instinct, and the fan base will scream, just give him what he wants. But managers and people have to think, well, if I give him what he wants, then suddenly
snowball effect from there. Then
and then you lose it, and then sometimes you end up in a situation where a new player comes in and they want more money than, like, you know, Alexis Sanchez of Manchester United at that time came in on an insane money, and then you're thinking, oh God, what did that do for our group? That was one of the bad things, I think, that, like amongst many things that happened.
Yeah.
When you have someone on insane money, the dressing room culture is just starts to be lost in some way. You know.
And also, if he doesn't do very well, it's even worse, isn't it?
And even was the Kurt Zuma before he went offside in life. Like people were surprised at what he was on. I remember at the time when he was fined. Like, I always thought teammates would just know what you're on.
No, they know. You never talk about your money.
Right. So at Liverpool in the 80s, you'd no idea.
No. Well, the only idea was that Kenny was on far more than we were.
But I assume after a couple of team nights out, like things sort of.
No one ever mentioned money. It was like no. But we knew Kenny was obviously, and quite rightly so, but because he was a genius. But no, we never spoke about money.
It's interesting. All these texts aligning following the Red Men since 1980. The best player Lawro played with, the King, I'm guessing, and the best player he played against.
Same person. Because I think 2 seasons when we were Brighton in the same league, we obviously played against Liverpool.
Right.
So, and my stock answer is always with Kenny is he couldn't run, he couldn't head it, and he had a big fat backside, and he was a genius. Absolute genius. Amazing. Never wore shin pads. In the 80s, that took some doing. And he just said, if the day I need to wear shin pads is the day I pack in.
Was it
But we'd have massive rows on the pitch,
Right.
me and Hansen and him.
Right.
Oh, we used to have these. Honestly, we'd be like, if you listen to it nowadays, you'd be thinking, God, they must hate each other. So we had this thing where, you know, you try and. He always wanted the ball into his feet, obviously, because he was brilliant at it. But sometimes you had to try and bend it round people, and, you know, it might get a little bit high, but he'd control it, right? And then lay it off, and then just look at you and just give you this, like, just go as though, like, you're something on the bottom of your shoe. But as soon as you finish, he'd come over and he'd go, we've won. It's all good. It's all good. And he was like that as player manager as well.
Is there anyone you watch now that's close to him in style?
No, I don't think there is.
He was quite, he was very much on himself.
I think you get one of those players every kind of 20 years, and that was him. You know, people talk about Gascoigne and everything, but Gazza was good, but not in his league.
Really?
Yeah, not in his league. And Lineker will always tell you about Gazza saying a lot of the time he'd only give you the ball when he couldn't do anything else with it. You know, he beat 3 people and came back and give you the ball where you didn't want it and stuff like that. I mean, still obviously a very gifted player, but no, Kenny was like, wow, was amazing.
Have you seen Messi in the flesh?
Yeah.
And Ronaldo?
Yeah. Messi would be my favourite player. Just because I think he's more of a team player than Ronaldo. As good as Ronaldo's been, Messi did some stuff where they were worldies every week, but they got better and better and better, didn't they?
Maradona?
Yeah. Well, the thing about him is, and Lineker again tells you this story, is when they hand of God, right? He said if you look at then the second goal, he said just factor this in, which is that the pitch had been relayed 2 days before, and he said, and when you ran on the pitch, he said it moved. He said, so watch his second goal, bearing in mind that the whole thing, the earth was moving for him, and he said if you look at that goal now, it's like wow. The second one.
I never knew this. Did you guys know?
No. Yeah. Yeah. And he said it was like amazing. He said how they ever played. Well, it was a different one in the 80s and stuff. But he just said that if you then look at that goal now, the second goal where he's gone past Reedy and everybody else, it's just like, how can you do that?
You didn't play against them, Lawro, did you?
No, I missed the game. We played them, didn't we? We played them in a friendly, but I think we were obviously, it must have been in a European semi or a final or something. Yeah.
One of those games, you know.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say it like that. But no, it just means we couldn't play.
Yeah, there was no people wouldn't be aware of the clashes that there would have been also with some of those games.
We hardly ever played. Me, Jim Beglin, Ronnie, hardly ever played between January and May. We might play in May for Ireland, but generally, and we were encouraged a little bit, to be honest with you, to say, my groin's a bit sore and all. But you know, I mean, Owen knew all about that and stuff. But he tried to get us to go to Brazil.
The disaster.
The ill-fated 7-0, whatever, and we bailed out. We got, in fact, to be fair to Bob Paisley, we went in to see him and said, Gaffer, we don't really want to go across the world and play in Brazil, but, you know, it's obviously political. And he just said, well, you've got a knee, you've got a groin, and you've got a pending in, you know, hospital, whatever sort of thing. So, yeah.
It's just funny you're talking. I'm sorry, John. We're talking about Lineker said this about various players and stuff, and we'll go back to the punditry thing and your time in the BBC. Did you ever see Lineker becoming what he is now in terms of the Des Lynam role almost?
Hopeless.
You know what I mean?
Honestly, he started off Radio 5, and he'd admit it, absolutely hopeless. It was car crash. It really seriously was. And then he did Football Focus, and he started to get better. And you know, in fairness to Gary, he writes all his own stuff, all of it. A lot of them don't. He writes all his one-line. Absolutely, he is a really bright lad and everything. But yeah, he writes all his own stuff.
He's very good now. This is the thing.
Yeah.
So anybody can do it, really.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, maybe not. But we'll talk about that at a later date. Yeah. Don't get me started.
Yeah, 53106. Does Mark enjoy Man United's current revise, or would he like to see them challenging again?
Simple answer.
Thank you.
Didn't even get a chance to finish the question there, John.
Expand on that, John. We can't talk about Man United again today. Every Saturday all season.
You thought one free Saturday.
One show we can get away from this.
Yeah. I nearly signed for them as well when Ron Atkinson was the manager. But
wow.
I don't.
God.
Yeah, I had 3 on the same day, including Terry Neal at Arsenal, which was... Terry Neal offered me less money than I was earning at Brighton. But I had a 10-year contract at Brighton. Remember Peter Ward? Probably don't remember. Scored loads of goals in the second and third division and everything. And we had 10-year contracts, only sort of protect the club and what have you. But literally on the same day, I could have signed for Arsenal, Man U and Liverpool. And Ron Atkinson had just got the Man U job. And he's waiting on Frank Stapleton because I think he was one of the first that went to tribunal.
Yeah.
And he rang me up. He said, whatever Liverpool give you, I'll give you more. He said, but I'm waiting for Frank's tribunal. And also, he said, Brighton want 2 or 3 players and you're coming, this way and all that kind of stuff.
Did you seriously consider them?
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah. But not Terry Neal, because first, well, as I said, he offered me less money than I was earning at Brighton. And then he said to me, and he went different tack, and he went, you played at Arsenal, haven't you? And I went, yeah. And he said, so, like, the bust of Herbert Chapman? And I went, yeah. And he said, and, the beautiful foyer and all. And I went, yeah, Terry. And he said, obviously in the dressing room, underfloor heating. And I went, yeah. And he said, and I want you to play with O'Leary. And I said, well, the first 3 were all right, but I wasn't sure about the 4th. Only joking, Dave. And the daft thing about that whole thing was that Arsenal went away. I met them at Gatwick Airport before I met Liverpool the next morning. And he went away and he said, I'll be in touch. And he rang the next morning and offered me more money. And I said, well, why didn't you offer me that money, yesterday? And he said, where are you meeting Liverpool? I was meeting them. There's a Round Hotel right almost on the runway at Heathrow. They'd come in from Switzerland. I said, I'm meeting them. They said, we're in the next door hotel. He said, because we're flying to, I don't know, Greece for a pre-season, whatever. If it doesn't go through with Liverpool, will you give me a ring? So, obviously, I didn't. But the chief executive of Liverpool certainly made sure he did.
And you had no agent at that stage. It was all...
Never had an agent in my life.
No, it was all you dealing with all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. But money was... I agreed my money in like 2 minutes. Because I was going home, Preston 30 miles away, and they just won the European Cup. And I tell the story to anyone who listens, and I knew it was the right thing, because the day after... I hadn't signed my contract, but we talked at Anfield late into the night because we had a long journey back from London and everything. And Bob said to me, I was having a medical. That was another laugh. I was having a medical with the doc, and he was just like bending my legs all over the place and everything. And Bob came in. Bob Paisley came in. It was late, and obviously Bob wanted to go home to bed because he was like probably in his 60s then. He said to the doc, "What are you doing?" In fact, the 2 docs, brothers, Irish boys, 2 docs. And he said, we spent a lot of money on this fella, and it was over £1 million with the VAT and everything. And he said, I just want to make sure. And he went to me, how many games did you play for Brighton? I said, I think I missed 2. He said, Doc, go home, right? So, and I actually had X-rays 5 months later, and I'd already signed. Anyway, so he said to me, go to the hotel, I'll pick you up in the morning. So I get a call in the morning from the concierge, Mr. Paisley's just pulled up outside, so I could go suited and booted and all those kind of things, thinking this is great. And as I walked out, he had a gold Ford, not a Capri, but a Granada. Like, it was like a pimpmobile, honestly. And as he got out, I just saw slippers, right? And then as he got more out of the car, I just saw this cardigan, and I just thought, this is good. And when he got near to me, he'd obviously had egg for breakfast in the morning. It was down the front. And I just thought, this is the club I'm going to absolutely all day long, yeah. So, yeah. What a fella he was.
It's a sliding doors moment, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
do you ever think about, like, if you'd gone to Manchester United, sort of the path that would have taken you on?
No.
You can't allow yourself.
Cash could have possibly been better at United, was it? Was the contract offer at United possibly even better?
Money.
Did you, because
money.
Liverpool was where you wanted to go?
Not massively, but more money. But they sorted you with a house-ish, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, as happened in those days. But no, it was great. Best thing I ever did.
So we won't talk about Man United. We don't need to talk about that.
No, well, we just have.
Yeah.
One word answer was enough, I think. It says it all.
5-3-1-6. Does Lawro have an opinion on Haaland going to City? Will they win the Champions League? Says Jack in Tyrone.
My only thing with him is, as good a player as he is, he needs a lot of green grass in front of him to score his goals, I think. I don't think City play that way. But will they change the style for him? Probably not. But he'll still score bundles of goals, won't he? But whether it's Champions League, they always seem to fall at the final hurdle, don't they?
What do you put that down to?
I really don't know. I mean, he got it wrong in Lyon, didn't he? think admitted to that. He changed the system and he'd never played that way before, which is, 2 or 3 seasons ago, I think. I don't know. I really do. And I mean, he should have changed it, shouldn't he, against Madrid? But that's with hindsight, isn't it? But you can't, when you get in such a position in the semi-final of, the Champions League, and they were 2 goals in front, weren't they? You just say, you know what? As good as I love, the way they play football, you say, well, let's just make sure we win. And let's us start falling over and kicking it into the corners. But that's not his way, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, he's not going to change, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
There's absolutely no way on earth. And I agree with you in terms of Haaland has got the majority of his goals up until now, but look, they're going to create so many chances.
Yeah.
You say. You'd be amazed if he doesn't easily 20 plus, possibly 30 plus.
Yeah, possibly.
But could he be the difference for the Champions League? I don't.
But it's a cup competition. This is the thing.
Exactly.
Like, it's just
like the
they didn't do a huge amount wrong in Madrid. I know. Like
really well.
It's sort of like you can analyse it. And that's what you do. That's what these shows exist for. To analyse it. But they didn't. Like, it wasn't quite a meltdown. It was just.
I think what he does is he
maybe extra time was a bit. They lost away a bit. The fact that they couldn't get themselves back up, and maybe that's where the mental questions could be asked.
I think he probably guarantees them another league title more so than he guarantees them Champions League. If you get me? Because over the course of a season, he'll do that well over the course of a season. But in one-off games, it's very hard for one person to swing a one-off game.
But in that game, look at Grealish. How unlucky was he?
Yeah.
So it's... Listen, sometimes it's not the best team that wins, isn't it?
Yeah.
At whatever level. And I mean, what was the headed goal where it skimmed off the other fella's head?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
So wasn't meant to be.
But this is the whole Madrid name and the trophy theory, right?
Here's one for you that I only heard this morning. I don't know if any of you have heard this one. So, European Cup finals, so Champions League or Europa League finals, since the turn of the century, so since 2001, okay? Spanish sides have been in finals against non-Spanish sides on 16 occasions across the 2 competitions. How do you think they've done?
Really well.
I'm guessing they've done really well, because otherwise...
Well, Barcelona and...
Flat. Yeah, Barcelona, Arsenal, and you can probably start to go through...
16 for 16.
Really?
16 for 16, wow.
Isn't that incredible?
Wow. It is incredible.
They've been in 16 finals, either Europa League or Champions League, against non-Spanish opposition. They're 16 for 16.
Wow, that is a stat.
I thought that was crazy.
I think, like I was trying to think of defeats in my head, like of sort of Spanish clubs in finals. You have the all-Spanish ones, obviously. This is the thing. So the Madrid final and so on. Yeah.
Mad one.
How do you think Klopp's going to approach it then tonight? What's he?
Won't change.
Yeah.
Why would you change? He's got almost a perfect formula, isn't he? So I don't see him changing at all.
Yeah.
I think the centre-half decision is a big one, and I think it's going to give us a little bit of an insight into where his head is at. Because
possibly.
For me, if he goes Matip, I think that's an assertive move in that we're going to go with the better ball player. We're going to be confident that we're going to dominate the game here, and that's why we're going with him. Whereas Konate is probably doesn't get Liverpool flowing as well, but what he does do is he gives you that double up cover on Vinicius Junior, because Konate is a beast, isn't he? And if Trent goes missing, Konate will get there and be able to handle him.
Well, and you'd hope that Henderson would be in and around there as well, wouldn't he?
He'll give a big dig out there as well, won't
but
he?
I'd play Matip, because I think, he's going to be tight. So if he comes through into midfield and breaks the ranks, it makes a massive difference.
I think tactically it's going to be a fascinating game. I really, really do. I think it's going to be so intriguing. I'm dying to see how it plays out, because there's so many different little battles. Like, you talk about that battle between one left back and one right back, but up the other end, I mean, Luis Diaz has to be looking at Carvajal and thinking,
fancy
give me the ball here. Give me the ball and let me go at this fella.
How well has he done?
Says something about the recruitment, doesn't it? What a fantastic...
Well, if you look, John, generally at players signed between 30, 40 million, and there's like 4 or 5 of them, they're all world-class players now. Obviously apart from, Van Dijk's and Alisson's completely different, but that they sold lots of players for good money as well, Liverpool, which enabled them to buy those two.
Like Coutinho ended up back at Villa.
Yeah.
But even like Jota's not in the conversation, whereas earlier in the season he was...
Yeah, he's we spoke about being leggy before. He's looked the most in terms of leggy at the moment than anybody else. He looks like he's had a tough season, so I don't think he'll start, will he?
I was just going to say, you were at the Wolves game last Sunday, so what was your sense even of the Liverpool fatigue levels? 'Cause I must admit now, I was watching the Man City game and then was flicking to the Liverpool one.
We all were.
But it was I don't know, the Liverpool performance at times. I mean, there was sort of tiredness, but you kind of wonder, was it more the situation? They're probably getting updates, and can you read too much into it? But even defensively, there was a couple of nervy moments in behind, and you're thinking, I know Van Dijk's not there, and that's a massive asterisk with that.
But there was, I mean, when they played against, I think it was Matip and Konate against Benfica, wasn't it? And
second leg, wasn't it?
And they kept getting done with one ball, basically. That's my only worry about Konate, is I don't think he's mastered that yet, and I think the other fella has.
Yeah.
Which is why I would pick Matip.
But you're not worried about them sort of physically then, in terms of you mentioned Jota, a couple of them maybe they're unlikely to start if they are in that sort of zone. Yeah.
And I mean, they get tested, don't they, for everything? So the doc, is it red blood cells and white blood cells and all that kind of thing? And actually, I think if you've got too many red blood cells or not enough, the doc can actually say to the manager, he's struggling, and you can, as a manager, you can say, I'm leaving you out the weekend because looks like your levels are down.
Driven, basically, yeah.
You see, there's physical fitness and there's psychological fitness.
Yes.
And I think last week, Dan, I think they would have been tireder last week going into the Wolves game because it's a big game, and then we have to try and lift ourselves again the following week. Whereas this is it. This is it.
Sort of
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing to have to worry about after this week. I think that will be a help psychologically for them.
Yeah, and it's like 19. You had that 3-week break, and it was a terrible final.
Yeah. I just wonder though, with the Thiago Fabinho situation, are you in it because of what Liverpool need to be at their max? Do you risk both of them if you're unsure? You know what I mean? Is there a sense of, do we start both of them if you're weary? Now, you would assume that the sports science is at such a high standard
what they earn
now
the money for,
that they will know. But obviously, you don't want to be wasting a change,
I think
very early.
I think it's dependent on your backup. And for as good as Liverpool have been this year, those three have well and truly established themselves as Liverpool's best three. I think it's a fair drop down to the next after, if it's Keita, if it's Milner, if it's Curtis Jones, whoever they go with, it's a fair drop down from the three you've got there down to whichever one is going to come in after those,
down.
Isn't it?
It's a big drop down. It does make me laugh though when they talk about them being tired and everything, because it's like that's in your head, isn't it? And if you're winning, if you're winning, whatever level, you can play every day.
Yeah.
Just not an issue. We did something the other day with the LFC TV, and they were talking about leading up to the final and everything. They're saying about us in '84. We went to Israel for a week on the lash. Last game of the season, we played Watford away, got on the El Al flight overnight, and we used to play the national team, the Israeli national team. But we always played as soon as we got there because we'd be too lashed up otherwise if we didn't play straight away. And literally, and Joe Fagan was the manager.
Was that a sponsorship thing? There's something why were you playing the Israel national team?
We seem to go every year. Pini Zahavi, the super agent.
Yes,
he was only running the country then. He wasn't a super agent. And he used to, obviously the club were getting loads of dough and we were having a good holiday and everything. But it was like, we got back on the Sunday, we train on the Monday, we go to Rome on the Tuesday. So we literally, we trained when we were there, but when I say train, it's get everything out of the body and all that kind of stuff. I honestly remember really clearly on the Monday when we trained at Melwood, and we always had these five-a-sides, and they were good, they were conditioned and everything like that. And I remember Joe Fagan stopping it, and he went, and he turned to Ronnie Moran, who generally did all the barking and all that kind of stuff, and he said, "Ronnie, stop them now. We're ready." And we'd had a week on the lash.
Yeah, you'd hit your level. We'd
hit our levels, and that was what's her name? Famous, not Barbara Streisand. She made Yentl. Have you seen that film Yentl?
Yeah, Barbara Streisand. Yeah.
No, it wasn't Barbara Streisand.
Well, she was in Yentl anyway. Whatever. I don't know what the other person is.
Okay, me and Ronnie Whelan met her in the lift. It was so funny, honestly. In Tel Aviv, that's where they were filming and everything. And the lift stopped, and me and him go in, and we just saw her. And like I said, these two big burly bodyguards, and she obviously must have been used to it. And she went, "Yes, it's me." Brilliant. Brilliant, wasn't it?
You know what that is, Lawro? Yeah. That is the Streisand effect.
But there you go. When, we just went, and we went, fair enough.
You should have just said, yes, it's us, in response, you know.
Yeah. We were probably 3 sheets to the wind, in all honesty.
5-3-1-6 set pieces will be massive tonight. Liverpool will have 4 or 5 taller than Benzema, Madrid's tallest and best defender of corners and frees.
Which you might play Konate for because he scores, isn't he?
He's done an amazing season. He's 34 years of age. He's got, 45 goals in 46 games? Yeah.
Hot to trot.
44 and 45.
Yeah. He doesn't score scrappies, does he?
No. What's the best way of shackling them as a defender?
Just don't let him have the ball.
Yeah.
But it basically is that, isn't it? Can't play without the ball, can you?
Yeah.
We'll see.
Communication's
always been the best way.
I think I read a piece somewhere today where I think the aggregate of Madrid's last 5 games or something was like 14-10 in the Champions League. Like, do you just expect it to naturally, that they will hurt you at some stage in the game? That it's going to be one of those where, like, Liverpool have this ability to outscore teams, in a sort of a wonderful way. Do you sort of...
Again, that's what fascinates
me. Do you overthink it by getting too conservative in some way?
I know Champions League finals can so often disappoint. I'd be stunned if this one disappoints.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'd be stunned if this one disappoints. I think we're guaranteed 3 goals plus. I really, really do. I don't, and I think they'll both.
I think they'll
both.
Yeah, but they can't defend Madrid, can they?
They have to attack.
They're not. So they've got to be on the front foot, haven't they? I would have thought. I'd be very surprised as well.
Somebody's correcting you, Shane. Liverpool beat Alaves in 2001.
I knew somebody would try and correct me somewhere along the line, but the Athletic tend to not get too many things wrong, so I said I'd roll it out there.
They did beat Alaves, though. Is it since 2001, maybe?
What did I say? 2001, yeah. Sorry, that was the question. Since 2001.
Yeah, well, that was the year.
I said turn of it. Sorry. So that's it. So it's since that game, John.
Was that the 5-4 winning golden goal?
That's it. Sorry, exactly.
5-4 in the final.
Gary McAllister, yeah.
Gary Matt, yeah.
16. So that's exactly how they phrased it. Since 2001, yeah.
So what is the argument for Real then?
Well, you look back at last year, and Vinicius Junior and Trent, and how much he got the better of him. Now, the only thing I would say there is, look, the centre-back partnership, Liverpool were riddled with injuries. Were they coming into the...
was that
the centre-back partnership was Matt Phillips and Kabak. Is that how you pronounce it?
I think you're right, yeah.
That was the centre-back pairing that day.
Where's he
when
gone?
they bet them 3-1.
Yeah.
Like, no surprise it was 3-1 with those two as a pairing at the back. But, yeah, look, they have to be... The way Trent bombs forward and Vinicius Junior's pace on the counter-attack, they'll definitely, they have to go after that. They clearly went after it last time. Tony Kroos played both passes out to Vinicius Junior that time round. I think he'll be looking to zone in on that every single time he gets it. And then just
Modric.
I was just going to say,
I think that's the argument for Madrid, isn't it? It's like Modric and Benzema. If all of a sudden their experienced A-listers show up, that's the argument, I suppose.
And the other argument, John, is are Liverpool short 2 of their starting 3 midfielders?
Yeah, well,
that's just going to be an absolutely massive swing if that's the case. Like, I think the Liverpool, as good and all as the Real 3 are, I think if the Liverpool have their 3 there, and you look at the energy of Fabinho and that in terms of hopefully trying to disrupt the other 2, Modric and Kroos, I think 3. If all 3 best are on the field, I'd give it marginally to Liverpool. But if they're down 1, it levels out. If they're down 2, they're in trouble. Jeez, they're in trouble, big time. Imagine they start tonight with a midfield 3 of Henderson, Keita, and Milner.
Yeah, it's not good. Well, say it's not good.
And then
it's a long way short of what you'd want to do.
Both players are been strongly, strong rumours that they're both in a bit of trouble.
Well, you'd have the only problem with that is you've got no creativity, have you?
No, it'll be
apart from the fullbacks,
yeah, but the midfield players, apart from
It is Kerry 7 points, Limerick 2 in the Munster football final in the first half. In the Talton Cup, Cavan 24 points down, 110, and Leitrim 213, Antrim 112. Questions for Lawro 53106 or for Dan McDonnell and Shane Keegan on Football Saturday. We're looking ahead to Liverpool and Real Madrid after this break. Off the Ball Saturday here on News Talk. John Duggan with you through to 8 on this extended show, bringing you commentary of Leinster La Rochelle, the Heineken Champions Cup final, live from Marseille. But before that, we're talking football. Champions League final day, Liverpool against Real, 8 o'clock. Mark Lawrenson in studio. Delighted to have Mark here in Dublin with Dan McDonnell of the Irish Independent and the UEFA Pro Licence coach Shane Keegan. You can text us 53106. Laura, lots of Liverpool people are going to Paris already there, and it is a real bond that Klopp has with the players and the team and the supporters. There's a real. I've said them enjoying themselves now at the moment.
Last couple of days, I would have thought. I mean, they say there could be upwards of 60,000, and there's only 19,000 tickets. So I just hope they behave themselves, because it'll be hot in Paris, won't it?
Yeah.
And they'll be on it.
They're a club that tend to behave themselves these days.
I think so. I think there's always a little bit of an iffy element about anyone's supporters, but they get it generally.
Yeah.
And why would you do anything to upset anyone at the club the way it's going at the moment?
Yeah. Klopp is incredible. Is he exactly what he's like on TV?
Yeah. Just the same. There's no act.
Yeah.
Did you see I don't know if you saw his interview with the girl from BBC, and she was asking him about the game and all that kind of stuff, and said, would you change your routine, because it's a final? And he went, no. And then he went, I'd still play Wordle every day. That's just the way he is.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get. I mean, when he first signed, I think it was the October, I don't know what year it was, and LFC TV asked him to go to their Christmas party, obviously, about a week before actual Christmas. And he said, I'm not going to the party per se, but I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll come for 15 minutes and you can interview me on stage to the lad Peter McDowell. And I said, oh, great. So Peter McDowell interviewed him and it was all good. And Peter McDowell said, so I threw this question in, which was a bit daft, but he said, do you think you're a Scouser? To Klopp. And he went, yeah. Pete said, why? He said, because I've got a purple wheelie bin. Because you can't have red or blue.
What?
Brilliant. He knew that you had to have a purple wheelie bin because you can't have a red one or a blue one, because obviously it's Merseyside. And he was like, yeah, because I've got a purple wheelie bin. Yeah. Mad, isn't he?
Yeah, great
That's just the way that he is.
Yeah. No. Do the players have is there an awe that they have? Like,
no.
Is it a bit like Mourinho? When Mourinho first came into football, there was that kind of rock star element is there a rock star element to Klopp?
No, not quite, although he's a heavy metal man, isn't he? But no, I don't think so. Benteke was the first one. I think he'd just left the club and he did a great piece. And he said, so somebody said to him, what was Klopp like? And of course, once you've left, you can say maybe things that you wouldn't say when you're there. And he just said, he's your mate. He said, but he's not your best mate, which I thought was a really clever thing to say. And that's the way that he is. Yeah. And he's, I go to the training ground quite a bit and stuff, and he's normal. Absolutely. But everybody loves him. And he talks to everybody. And in the second, apart from recruitment, the second most important person at the club is the girl he took from Bayern Munich. She decides all the food everywhere, and if you've just moved, and she'll come round to your house and say to your wife, you should be eating this, you should be eating that, and all those kind of things. And she's got a glass office upstairs in the training ground where she watches everybody eat and everything. And I never knew this, but in the new stand in the home dressing room, when you finish, you have to walk through this particular doorway, and it's like a mini restaurant, and she makes you eat. Right. And there'd be like 4 or 5 different meals for different players and all that, but you have to physically eat, because it's obviously just something that's really, you've got to replace whatever straight away. Whereas we'd have 14 pints of Stella, right?
This is straight after a game, you're saying, is this?
Yeah, straight after a game. And you weren't allowed to go out the other door. You have to go out of this door. And she goes, right, pick one of these, and it's pasta or, all those kind of things. So, yeah, they're ahead of the game, aren't they?
Precision is amazing.
Yeah.
Neuroscientists and always for penalties.
Did you see that? See the little thick skull cap?
Yeah.
But that Benteke line is a great line, because that is it. He seems to be able, it's such a hard thing to get right. He seems to be able to walk that line perfectly of allowing himself to get so close to players without it ever interfering with his decision making.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It just, some of the times when he whips Henderson off and you can see how frustrated Henderson is, and Salah and different guys, and he's obviously very close to a few of them, but not when it comes to decision making. It just doesn't matter.
No, and I think he now does the Fergie thing, which is, so like, you're not playing tomorrow, but you're playing on Wednesday. Yeah. So you're not going to come and kick his door down because you're playing on Wednesday or the following weekend, which I think Fergie was the first one to really do that, and he definitely does that all the time.
I think you've said on the show as well before, Lawro, that you have senior leaders in the dressing room, probably both clubs that are, you know, Henderson, Milner, Van Dijk, and then in Madrid you'd have Modric, you'd have Kroos, you'd have these types of Benzema, and it probably makes the manager's job easier. So for Ancelotti, he can be avuncular. He can then decide tactically what he wants to do. Yeah,
well, I think it's, you know, you go to John Terry at Chelsea, Tony Adams, you know, all those kind of things, and they would, you know, the proper dressing rooms, and the lads will know this, is like they have a fining system for all kinds of different things, and it's a little bit light-hearted, but it's also quite serious, and it's good. It's good for all of them, and you can just tell with Liverpool they're all one, aren't they? And there's no kind of big stars, as it were. I mean, if there are, they soon get shot down. Our day was the same. I think the three jocks probably ran it. Hansen, Souness, and Dalglish, and we were just the same, and we kind of decided loads and loads of stuff.
Henderson, Lawro, he just comes across as such a solid professional, doesn't he? Like in that sense, in terms of the kind of person you want in your dressing room. Milner,
Milner's the same. I mean, they're big mates as well, those two. I think they live really close to each other, and Van Dijk will obviously be involved as well, and they're all good sorts, aren't they? They're all good sorts, and, you know, I think that's definitely the difference. But it was funny because when Graham Souness was made captain instead of Tomo, that they don't particularly like each other, still don't, but they're a little bit better now. But I remember pre-season we'd come in and they'd say to you, right, we're going pre-season tours wherever. And I'll never forget one year, and Graham had been in the manager's office, in Bob Paisley's office, and he came in and, like, laughing, right? He said, close the door, get all the kids out, like young apprentices, get all the kids out. And he went, you'll never guess where we're going pre-season. And we're going, go on then. You'll never ever guess. So where? Marbella. So we went to Marbella pre-season, could you imagine, in the 80s. And the boot room had no idea. They just thought it was someplace in Spain. Oh, my goodness. So we play at Casablanca on the way. Money for the club, obviously. Fly into Marbella and everything. And it was like, I'll never forget, it was like 6:30 at night. And in the hotel we were in, it was full of women, as much as anything like that. And they were all walking out into the port, into Marbella. Joe Fagan spotted it straight away, and he just went, meeting. Right, so we go in this room, meeting, and he just went, we are training tomorrow at 10:30. If anybody's late, he said, for the first time ever, I'll be fining people, because he just thought, oh my God, what's going to happen tonight?
What have we done here?
Yeah. And it was brilliant, by the way.
You're talking about, like, great.
Wasn't there?
Yeah.
She wasn't there.
No lifts. Great nights, obviously, Liverpool have had, like Madrid 3 years ago, and Istanbul. And you were in Istanbul. You were there.
Yeah. I was working for Radio 5, but my pals from Southport, one or two of them had got a few quid, and they got a private plane. So they got a plane over, obviously, and all kind of good, and went to the game, which was 20 miles outside of Istanbul, you know, and that stadium that had just been built and everything. The road wasn't even finished, and it was crap, to be quite honest with you. And 3-0 at half time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And so they went. They had the skipper waiting at the airport. So they had a straw poll. There was 8 of them. They said, "What shall we do?" And one of the lads has gone, might get beat 4-1 here, or, you know, whatever. I vote we go back. So they went, yeah, let's all go back. And thinking, of course, no one's going to the airport, so that's great. So they're in the minibus, going to the airport, 3-1. Boys, what are we doing? Are we telling the fellow to turn round? No, don't worry about it. 3-2, turn round. And went back, obviously. Missed the third goal, but saw the rest of it.
They let them back in. I see they're probably in good seats.
You could actually walk into that ground that night.
Really?
Oh, it was hopeless. It was absolutely hopeless. And loads of people were walking in. There was just... It'd been recently built. I think the guy, the Turkish guy, was on UEFA's committee.
Well, Turkey and UEFA would be well got, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and that was it. And you could literally just walk in.
Because you see the footage of the Madrid fans who left the semi-final at 1-0, and then when it went to extra time,
when they hit the 90
they weren't let back
against City.
There was no readmission.
The next thing.
Do you know one thing about that? Liverpool fans would never, ever, ever do that, ever.
Never leave.
Well, and he's convinced them, hasn't he? Because he did that thing, didn't he, against West Brom, Klopp, where Liverpool scored a late equaliser to 2-2, and he took them down to the Kop at the end of the match and made them wave to the Kop and everything. And all the journos were going, what was all that about? It was only West Brom who were third bottom. And he said, if I can't convince my supporters that we could possibly score in the last 4 or 5 minutes of the game, what's the point? That's how, it's quite clever, isn't it?
Mm. Let's make the case for Liverpool then, Lawro. What's going to be the difference?
Well, if it is Fabinho and it is Thiago, I think we've got a little bit too much for them. But I just worry because sometimes your name's on it. And looking at Madrid, those 3 games, Chelsea, PSG, Man City. So I think it's just going to be really tight. I really do.
It's absolutely remarkable. They're looking to win their fifth in 9 years.
I know.
How the hell?
And we look at them, we think they've not got that good a team, do we? But they just seem to be able to do this.
The young Brazilian lads, I think, are very exciting.
Yeah.
They're only 21 years of age, like Vinicius Junior and Rodrigo. Like, I don't know if Rodrigo will start. And obviously Valverde is in there as an industrious player. But I think Mane is playing well. He's playing well at the moment. He's got 13 goals.
Adapted well to that position. He's proper through the middle now at the moment, isn't he?
And the other fella can play there as well. Diaz, he can play through the middle. So, yeah, listen, it's the best squad the club has ever had. No, I mean, they've virtually got 2 players for each position. If you say Gomez can play instead of Trent, obviously not as good, but he can still play there.
Simicas.
Yeah. Oh, they love him. They absolutely love him because he's the dressing room fool, apparently.
Right.
Yeah, but that's one way to.
It's a role to play.
There's always one,
someone has to do it. Yeah.
Popular.
There's always one, and Klopp loves him as well. But Klopp, some of the people around Klopp aren't really football people, but he just likes them because they're quirky, and they give off sort of good vibes and everything, but they just hang around with the team, and that's just the way he is, isn't he? He's just different.
Well, they're used to penalties. If it does go that far.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
Not again.
Yeah.
Not again, please.
I feel like if the game goes to 120, if it goes that far, you sort of think, Madrid could do something in extra time. I feel like Liverpool would win it in 90 in a weird way. I think Madrid are just, I don't know. Then you can look at the age thing and completely flip that round and say, could Madrid run out of steam?
I think winning the cup final on penalties would stand to them. If penalties.
I just think Liverpool
that would give them a little bit of a mental steel that, look, lads, been here before pretty recently.
Yeah,
not a bother
and
to
no one generally takes bad penalties anymore, do they?
No.
Very, very rarely. Very rarely.
I think Liverpool have the ability to blow Madrid away if they really are on a really good day. Yeah. But I think the longer the game goes on and if it's tight, you just wonder a small bit about the Madrid sort of the old dogs. You know what I mean?
Stars.
It's going to be hot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is another factor. I mean, can you keep pressing for 90 minutes if it's really hot? It's a
build
tough
up.
call.
If you win in the 90, but it's when you go to the 90 to 120, it becomes a little bit more.
Build up on the day, Lawro. Would say in 84, build up to the final. Did you change your routine? Did you go for a sleep in the middle of the day? What will players be doing right now?
We did that anyway. So they'll probably be kipping.
Yeah,
I would think. Yeah, maybe gone for a walk this morning. They wouldn't have trained. Gone for a walk and just off to your rooms. But I mean, it's different now because we'd always be 2 of us in a room. They're just on their own, aren't they now? And it's just. But they'll just be resting up.
53106, lads, what a brilliant show. Lawro's stories are all pure gold. I'm a Man U fan, says John and Taryn. You're in Dublin, so thanks for your text, John. And hi, Lawro, beverage of choice in the sun, says Mark.
In the sun? Gin and tonic.
And it's not
pub.
sunny? In the pub?
Gin and tonic.
Right.
I've stopped drinking wine.
Yeah. Were you ever Guinness man, Lawro?
Yeah. I did a big advert for Guinness in 1982 all on the billboards all over Dublin.
Right.
And I wasn't actually in the shot. It was just like a scarf and obviously a pint of Guinness, and there's no substitute for Mark Lawrenson. And I brought my lad across here for his first pint, and he insisted we go to the Guinness store, and it was there, and he was actually for once quite impressed. He didn't think his dad,
about the football achievements.
He didn't think his dad was a tosser that day, and he said, "Oh, that's quite cool, isn't it?"
The Guinness ad. I mean, there you go.
You would look a Howard, Lawro.
I got $2,000. It'd be punts, wouldn't it?
Punts for
in the early 80s.
Yeah.
It's a nice few quid back then.
That's under $250,000 inflation now, is it?
Yeah. In case the taxman's listening, no, I didn't.
In tokens.
Punts don't exist anymore anyway.
That was it. Yeah. I used to have Guinness and black because I didn't like the taste.
Blackcurrant.
Yeah, and I failed my medical at Brighton. Too much blackcurrant in my blood. I'd been away with Preston lads before I signed, and the doc says to me, "You're diabetic," and I went, "No, I'm not." He said, "Well, you are." I was having a blood test every hour for about 6 hours, and they were going to call the deal off and everything. And he just happened to say, "Where have you been?" And I said, "I've been to Benidorm, of all places, with the boys." He said, "Do you drink?" And I thought, what shall I say? 'Cause I wanted to sign. Yeah, I should have done. And I went, "Oh, yeah, I've had loads of Guinness." He went, "Oh, that shouldn't do it." I went, "But I have blackcurrant in it, Doc." And he went, "Oh, my God." And then he said, then he realised and it was fine.
Got to call the verdicts quickly. Verdict on tonight, Liverpool, Real Madrid. Shane Keegan.
2-1 Real.
Oh.
Dan McDonnell.
I think they've filled it.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, I'll say 2-1 or something in the 90, but I think in the 90, I think they've pulled to win it in the 90.
2-0, 90s.
In the 90. Lawro, you're a legend, and
not a legend in my own house.
It's been up. Well, you are here, and in the
billboard as well,
and in the country. It's been a pleasure to have you in and off the ball.
Enjoyed it.
Saturday here on News Talk.
It's nice to see where you actually work from.
Yeah, it's very American.
Is it called slave labour? Is that right?
No, it's not. No, we're all very well looked after, and and I don't have a gun to my head off here to say that. So, no, pleasure, Lawro. Thanks so much, and look forward to speaking to you next season. So that is Football Saturday for now. Remember, we're on air until 8 o'clock this evening. We're showcasing live commentary of the Heineken Champions Cup final between Leinster and La Rochelle. Conor Morris and Brent Pope are in Marseille for us. We'll hear from them after 4. The match kicking off at 4:45. We'll also get updates as well from Kerry and Limerick and Dublin and Kildare on the show this evening. We're off to the Stade Velodrome in Marseille to speak to the match commentators. After this break, don't go away.